Hello students, welcome to ePathshala. I am Professor Pampar Mukherjee, Department of Political Science, Punjab University. I am also the coordinator of the paper Comparative Politics. Today we are going to discuss civil society, its emergence and revival. In this module, we are going to talk about the changing nature of civil society with special reference to advanced industrial nations as well as developing societies. We are going to borrow examples from both these categories of nation states in understanding the concept of civil society. We are also going to look upon the changing nature of civil state and civil society over a period of time. We are also going to address the Western philosophical traditions of civil society and in the process discuss the evolution of the nature of civil society in both advanced and developing societies. The module will deal with the conceptual fluctuations in the understanding of civil society, right from the classical to the medieval and modern theorization. It will delve into the relationship between the state and civil society through liberal and Marxist perspectives. The module will also look into the emergence, nature, and changing role of the civil society with special reference to the developments in both communist regimes of Central Eastern Europe, that is Poland and Hungary, and advanced democracies of the West, America and Britain. Civil society has emerged as an important phenomena to the studying of issues of governance in political science. The complex variety inherent in the nature and concept has made civil society an integral part in the literature of comparative politics. The idea of civil society has been taken up by as well as linked to the developments of Western political system. Ever since its emergence, civil society has played a central role in framing and influencing state policy decisions through the employment of various mechanisms such as participation, discussion, protest, and service delivery. Starting with the Platonic explanation of seeing civil society as a larger unity desirous of countering private interests of a few, it became part of political parlance in the 16th and 17th century Europe. With the process of democratic deepening and more recently with globalization, it has evolved as a force not only affecting policy decisions and ensuring state accountability, but also as an entity aiding state in delivery of services and taking up matters of global concern. Therefore, due to the diversity in the nature and role of civil society, it has become an important unit for comparison in political science. Now, coming to the meaning and nature of civil society, we find that civil society is one of the most flexibly used concepts in the history of political theory. Although traces of the idea of some association of the civil kind can be seen much before during the period of Enlightenment, formal conceptualization of the term is attributed to the theoretical developments of the 18th and the 19th century. Civil society is essentially regarded as an integral feature of liberal democratic system where citizens have a freedom to organize, deliberate, participate, and affect policy decisions on lines of securing the rights and interests of the members of the society. It denotes an empowered mass of population seeking to correct the democratic malfunctioning. In this regard, scholars like Stephan Linz has defined civil society in the following manner. He says, and I quote, "An arena of polity where a self-organization of groups, movements, and individuals, relatively autonomous from the state, attempt to articulate values, create associations and solidarities, and advance their interests," unquote. According to another scholar like Gordon White's contemporary perspective, civil society is understood as an intermediate association, a realm between the state and family, and populated by organizations which are separate from the state. It enjoys autonomy in relation to the state and are formed voluntarily by members of the society to protect or advance their interests or values. Thus, what we find that the normative theory of civil society includes protection of the people against abuse of power by the state, mediation between state and private sphere, socialization, integration, and communication as important functions of the civil society. Therefore, what we find and what emerges is that civil society means certain following things. What are they? And civil society, as we have just mentioned, means diverse things. A, it can mean an autonomous and voluntary group, association or community of individuals. It can be a formal or informal organization or a movement by the collective. It can also mean the members of the group who unite with a common agenda primarily for protection of a shared public interest. It seeks to replace top-down authoritarian model by bottom-up model of democracy. Further, it also is not a part of the state, yet it shares a permanent integrate relationship with the state. Its emergence and sustenance is thus dependent upon the political environment. Civil society can thrive in an open democratic political order, which means that the presence of active civil society organizations indicate the prevalence of a democratic order and vice versa. There are different forms of civil society. Civil society can be said to have various forms such as non-profit organization, NGOs and charitable organizations. Example of this category can be like something like Oxfam, Amnesty International, etc. It also includes bodies like the religious associations, social worker groups, unions, research groups, media, member-specific organizations, something like women's groups, environmental groups, professional associations, and so on and so forth. Some scholars also argue that advocacy groups, revolutionary groups, movements, anti-capitalist activism, anti-globalization movements, and so on and so forth can also come within the framework or category of civil society. Now, this can be clubbed in terms of their purpose into four broad categories as those associated with A. Humanitarian tasks, 2. Developmental tasks, 3. Human rights protection, 4. Peace-building mechanisms. Idealized with characteristics of benevolence and charity, benefiting the members of the society, the role of civil society is recognized by its contribution in various fields: social, political, economic, and legal in terms of preserving general interests. It tries to establish a more inclusionary and participative democratic order. Broadly, it can be seen as committed to five-pronged motive of A. Ensuring accountability of the authorities, that is, monitoring states' functioning. B. Enabling citizens to organize and voice their concerns, that is, spreading awareness and mobilizing people, in other words, working towards collective goals. C. Serving the needy and the disadvantaged. D. Influencing the decision-making process and giving effect to state policies and services. E. Enabling the state by offering relevant data and working support towards protecting the interests of the public. Next, we are going to talk about what is the nature of civil society engagement. Now, there are three ways of achieving the purpose: by forcing the state to fulfill its task, or by taking up the agenda through self-efforts, or both processes simultaneously. These are performed by either reacting or getting involved with the state. Thus, although it is independent of the state, it shares a constant engagement with the state nonetheless. Neither does it seek to overpower the state, nor does it allow the state to repress. This it does by application of pressure mechanisms against the state, or by raising awareness and organizing movements over specific issues concerning its members, or by sharing demands of the collective at political forums, or through participation in deliberations to influence policies. Although there has always been an uncertainty with regard to the extent of involvement permissible, it is dependent on the nature of political system as well as the level of empowerment of civil society to bring out the desired impact. It will be worthwhile to look now at the history of the concept of the civil society, how this idea of the civil society evolved over a period of time. We find that although the term was formally employed in its modern sense, the Scottish Enlightenment in the famous Adam Ferguson's An Essay on the History of Civil Society, and in German idealism, the roots of the concept are found in the traditional philosophies of Greek and Roman thinkers. Classical political philosophy defined civil society as a concept corresponding to the state. The ancient Greek and Roman language clearly referred it as a political society, a state. The philosophy of Cicero's, Aristotle's Koinonia, Locke's civil government, and Kant's work all more or less implied a civil society as a less civilized and rational society coterminous with the state. Contractualists saw civil society as a social bond which was non-existent in the state of nature. However, there were some differences in their theorization of the concept. Where Hobbes saw it as a monarchist civil society, Locke referred to it in liberal constitutional terms and explained civil society as a political society which they enter by making a consensual contract and which, while limiting the government, is assigned with the judicial, legislative and executive powers aimed at the good of the people. More generally, in these systems, men participated, whether in hypothetical condition or real states, in the public sphere, and in the process they settle all disputes according to a system of laws. Thus, it corresponds to a nationalist view of civil society where citizens are bonded with the common law of the land. In continuation of this interlinked understanding, philosophers like Immanuel Kant, Adam Ferguson, Pufendorf and others held the state as a facilitator enabling freedom and equality in the society and regulating and preserving the fabric of the civil or political society. Kant elaborated the concept of civil society as a political arrangement which secures individuals' rights through public laws. Thus, the line between the civil society and the state was unidentified. The political philosophy of the late 18th and the early 19th century, however, saw it as a juxtaposed to the state and as an intermediary institution between the state and the society. The break in the synonymy of civil society and the state was more an outcome of late 18th century British and American thought. The 18th century developments, as highlighted in the writings of Tom Paine, Hegel, Alex de Tocqueville, Adam Ferguson and Adam Smith, led to a gradual delinking of the state and civil society. They made historic contributions in providing a more acceptable understanding of civil society and marking clearer borders between the civil society as distinct from the political state. Commonly, it was seen as an entity between the family and state, a community where individual is looked beyond the private interests and collaborated with each other in pursuance of a common goal. However, in doing so, Hegel did not overlook the importance of individual self-interest and at the same time advocated the protection of individual rights and property through appropriate mechanisms of state institutions. What we therefore find that in Hegelian theory, a civil society comprised of a vast gamut of social, civic and economic institutions such as religious groups, professionals, bureaucracy, courts, welfare agencies, educational establishments, etc. Hegel in fact explained that the civil society operated at three levels: family, that is bonds by the birth; the civil society, a combination of individualism and selfishness; and the state, comprised of citizens oriented towards the common interests of the whole political community. the theoretical roots of civil society, we now are going to discuss the contemporary notions of civil society and democratic state. The renewed interest in the idea of civil society emerged in the wake of Eastern European political developments in the 19th century. The modern conception of civil society reaffirmed civil society as an arena between the individual or family and the state. According to Perry Anderson, civil society designated all those institutions and mechanisms outside the boundaries of the state system proper. Scholars like Jean Cohen and Andrew Arato defined civil society as a space comprised of voluntary and non-voluntary actors outside the realm of the state as well as the capitalist society. Further, eminent philosopher Charles Taylor identified civil society capable of flourishing in a liberal system, and he goes on to say that civil society should be looked as a web of autonomous associations independent of the state, which binds citizens together in matters of common concern, and which, by their mere existence or action, could have an effect on public policy. Contemporary thinkers like Laclau and Maffei highlighted the weakness of the classical Marxist way of visualizing civil society as bourgeois driven by private economic interest. They in fact promoted civil society as a field of democratic struggle rather than an arena of market-state debate. Social movements were seen as an attribute of this civil society. In fact, a rectification of Marx's reductionist approach was also previously attempted by later Marxists such as Gramsci and Althusser. They refrained or resisted from reducing civil society to a narrow economic sphere and saw it as rather wider set of civic, religious and professional, educational, cultural, informal associations between the economy and the state. This came to be considered as essential features of a well-developed civil society and were seen as possessing potential to preserve order and protect pre-revolutionary state from social uprisings. For instance, something that happened in the Tsarist Russia, which due to lack of civil society was exposed to revolutionary attacks from Bolsheviks. Gramsci therefore once again harmonized the functioning of political state with civil society. His influence was evident in the continued works of Althusser and Michel Foucault, who also highlighted on the political functions of civil society. We are now going to move on and discuss civil society and its relationship with the state. Now, to question the relationship between the state and the civil society, there were differences of opinion. At one end, there were theories compelling the state to limit its role to as much necessary towards making civil society efficient for its self-regulation. Meaning to say, the more effective the civil society, the less was the need of the state. Contrarily, another viewpoint treated civil society as subordinate to the state, which was in the interest of civil society itself. It explained the need of a state as necessary for sustenance of a civil society. According to the Marxist perspective, that is classical Marxism, it understood civil society as entirely a different entity. While accepting the Hegelian idea, that is the early 19th century idea given by Hegel regarding civil society as an association of private individuals pursuing private interests, Marx equated this association with bourgeois society based on class interest. In fact, Marx forwarded the idea of civil society as a society of self-seeking economic actors, that is the bourgeoisie. Now, unlike Hegel and Paine or Tocqueville, Marx completely ignored the democratic principles of civil society associations. The later Marxists like Gramsci revised the reductionist approach of Marx. Now let's look at the liberal perspective. Now theorists from the liberal school like J.S. Mill and Tocqueville reacted against state intervention, which was seen as paralyzing the independent functioning of civil society affairs. They warned against the abuse of state power as usurping the freedom of citizens and advocated the principles of democracy and participation through civil society. Tocqueville, for instance, extensively distinguished between the state society and civil society. According to Tocqueville, state was a set of formal governmental bodies such as parliament, courts, police, bureaucracy, whereas civil society, according to him, implied at non-state civilized associations of individuals such as parties, public opinions, churches, schools, commercial organizations, and organizations for leisure and recreation, etc. Meaning to say that these organizations simultaneously check the excessive centralization of power by the state. Unlike Marx, Tocqueville excluded the economy from the civil society while exploring the nature of American civil society in the mid-19th century. Now, coming to the radical school of thought of the period of the 1970s and the 80s, they looked at the role of civil society as central to establishing a democratic state. The civil society in the late 19th century Europe claimed a radical role towards bringing about a political transformation by replacing the authoritarian state by a democratic order. It was characterized more as an opposition force challenging the communist regime of the Soviet bloc in Central Eastern Europe. The relevance of radical civil society, which is theorized in the works of Kuro from Poland and Kurard from Hungary, became debatable due to internal difficulties in the aftermath of the successful implantation of liberal democracy post-1989 post-communism. Thus, we find that the focus shifted to liberal civil society with a participatory approach. Let's now look at how civil society has been addressed in contemporary political thought. Now, building on the liberal tradition, the modern theories essentially stressed on the positive role of civil society and informed that no emancipation is possible in the modern world without a strong civil society that can strengthen the public sphere and can provide a haven from and a center of resistance to the behemoth state. Although the state, through its policy of welfare, seems to have attempted to bridge the gap between the individual and the political state, it has failed to surpass the significance of civil society as one of the most potent tools for democratization. It has emerged as a tool for ensuring state accountability and for protecting the interests of its members. In compliance to this viewpoint, scholar like John Keane has dealt with the state-civil society dichotomy in a more holistic manner. According to him, state and civil society are not to be seen as independent of each other. Rather, civil society and state must become the condition for each other's democratization. Within this, civil society could hold state accountable and state could ensure vigil over the anarchical tendencies of civil society which might lead to the rise of newer forms of inequality. Thus, in a modern liberal democratic framework, state laws and mechanisms have relevance of their own, which, when overlooked, are likely to disrupt the orderly functioning of the social system. Both state and civil society are to guard each other without trespassing each other's spheres of activity. In the era of globalization, there has been an uprising of new social movements beyond regional boundaries. The postmodern perspective throws light on the spread of social networks at global scale and the emergence of civil society as a powerful third sector. Robert Putnam, in his seminal work Bowling Alone and Making Democracy Work, Civic Tradition in Modern Italy, explained the significance of civil society and established that a responsible government is a consequence of a strong civil society or social capital. Today, the term civil society has moved beyond its purpose of striving for popular democracy to what World Bank defines a wide array of non-governmental and non-profit organizations such as labor unions, charitable groups, professional associations, educational institutions, corporations, and business groups. They seek to protect the interests of their members and of the larger society in terms of ethical, scientific, religious, cultural, and philanthropic values. Thus, although the concept has varied from time to time and in different social systems, there are evident continued commonalities in its basic understanding, and this understanding is summarized in the definition of Ernest Gellner. He says that civil society is that set of diverse non-governmental institutions which is strong enough to counterbalance the state, and while not preventing the state from fulfilling its role of keeper of the peace and arbitrator between major interests, can nevertheless prevent it from dominating and atomizing the rest of the society. So what we can find and what we can say in conclusion that what emerges is that civil society is a sphere distinct from state and market and working towards active participation of its member with the purpose of securing their particular as well as larger interests. Let's now conclude what we have learned today. We talked about the changing role and nature of civil society, taking clue from advanced industrial societies as well as democratic societies. We also talked about the evolution of the concept of civil society in Western philosophical traditions. We also talked about the changing nature of state and civil society in democratic nations. Now, coming to the concept of civil society, what we basically discussed and what we can finally conclude is that civil society as a concept is highly flexible. The term has been used in the liberal traditions, in the Marxist traditions, and otherwise it is popularly used in the most flexible form. So, in other words, what do you mean to say? That there is no one single definition of civil society. In fact, the way it is used now, the way it is understood today, it has its bearing in the theoretical developments in 18th and 19th century. The term has been used by scholars to understand an autonomous sphere of social interaction between the family and the state. Now, this understanding of civil society has an Hegelian imprint. Hegel, for example, looked upon civil society as an arena of selfishness, of egoism, and in this context, Hegel says the state is an important actor in containing the domain of the civil society. It may be brought to the mind that civil society operates within a rule-bound state. We also talked about that relationship between the state and civil society as an important arena in democratic societies. Why? Because it is argued by scholars that the more democratic the civil society is, more democratic the state will be, and vice versa.